Hello. So I know I haven't uploaded in a year, but I wanted to make like a vlog about my life and a reflection on my second year in college. So this is it. Let's get started. So after my last video, I actually did an internship in Japan, and it was really amazing. So during the summer, I took two humanities courses that were filling requirements. I wasn't really interested in them. Well, one was linguistics, so that was pretty cool since I'm very interested in languages. But yeah, they were pretty straightforward. I finished them by the beginning of July, and in the middle of July, I started my internship in Japan, and it lasted to the middle of August. So I ended up staying in Joetsu, which is in Niigata Prefecture, Kanazawa, which is near Kyoto and Osaka, Kawasaki City, near Yokohama, and Mishima, which is a small town kind of close to Mount Fuji. And for three of the locations, I was there for a week per location. I was staying with the host family, and that was a really great experience. I got to practice Japanese. They taught me about Japanese culture, and I taught them about American culture and English and all this stuff. The program was really amazing. It had nothing to do with my major. I'm engineering, and this was more like teaching English and like presentation skills and confidence and all this other stuff. And mostly I did the trip because it was just such a great life experience more than like something to put on my resume and be, bragging about. I'm just happy that I got to do this amazing experience at least once in my lifetime. Getting to live in a host family's house is totally different than going to a country as a tourist. Um, One of the really funny moments of that trip was I was with my host brother, and we were walking back from school or something, I don't know. And so I was like, okay, so you shower first, I shower second. That sound good? And I guess it was lost in translation because he's like, no, together. I was like, what? And he was like, wait, repeat, sorry. So then we eventually figured it out. But there was all these little moments like that I thought were really funny. I really got to connect to the families, and it was just a great time overall. I'm planning on going back to Japan at some point. Um, but one of the most important things I got out of that trip was I had studied Japanese before going for about a year, just on my free time on the internet. And after going there, I was like, oh, my Japanese is probably not good enough to speak on a normal day to day basis with Japanese people. I should probably work to improve it if I want to actually be, good at the language. So it made me decide to take Japanese in university. So I'll talk about that when I talk about my first semester. So when I got back to Berkeley from Japan, I had high hopes for the semester, but they didn't actually turn out that great, to be honest. My my third semester at Berkeley, the first semester of my sophomore year, was really hard. I kind of blocked it out of my memory that it was so bad, for a variety of reasons. So um, I was in an apartment, so I wasn't in the dorms anymore. I was adjusting to living with my new housemates. Sometimes that we would have fights. It was a little stressful getting used to it. I was taking difficult classes that required a lot out of me, and that's always just it's part of college. It wasn't anything unique to me, but it was hard. It got to the point where I had an Excel sheet actually, and I think it was called like daily mood or something, and it was had every like hour, or no, it had every mood shift. And so um, I would like write down how I felt at the beginning of the day. Then I'd write down when my mood shifted to like worse or better, and then I'd write every time my mood changed. So I'd go days where it was like green at the beginning, like I woke up feeling pretty motivated, and then by the middle of the day I'd feel like not great. So I'd put in like dark red, like not feeling good, and then I would go back to green and then back to red. So I was having my emotions were definitely out of whack. I was having these I don't know what the word is, mood changes, something like that, every day, multiple times a day, and it's just I wasn't in an emotionally good place that semester. Um, it was weird because now I look back and I was only taking one really hard class I didn't care about, one class that was like whatever. Didn't really care about it, but I didn't hate it. And then my two other classes, one was Japanese, which I absolutely fell in love with, and it was such a savior that time. It kept me going, it kept me motivated. And the other class was computer science. So computer science ended up being a really important class for me to take. It was very difficult. It's one of the most, I wouldn't say one of the most difficult. It's one of the most defining classes they offer at Berkeley. It's called CS61A. And so I took it because it's a requirement for my major at the time, bioengineering. And I just fell in love with it so much, even though it was so difficult, that I really considered declaring a double in computer science. So from that one class, I decided to take more computer science classes my next semester. If I, if I enjoyed those, I would declare a double in computer science. Um, so it's just, I'm not sure why that semester was so hard for me, but my mood was just not right. And um, I just didn't feel happy a lot of the time. I felt kind of lonely, and maybe it was because I was living on my own in the apartment now, or maybe it's because I wasn't connecting as much with my friends, but something was different and it didn't feel right. So I know that sounded really depressing and sad, but it wasn't actually terrible. I went home during winter break and I had a great time. I went on vacation with my family, um, saw my grandpa a lot, and I thought a lot about why that semester had been so hard for me. And I realized that doing things that you don't enjoy is, for me at least, impossible. I couldn't, I, like people always say, oh, you don't need to do something that you love as long as you make money. Um, and then you can use the money to buy happiness, et cetera, et cetera. And then I tried doing that. I tried doing things that I didn't like because I knew that it would get me a good path, a good career, and I was like, this is terrible. I cannot do this. And I was only doing it for like 3 months of my life, so I don't know how people do it for their whole careers. But yeah, I decided that I needed to pick things that I really like to do in the future. So I made that my goal to do things that I actually enjoy in my coming semesters. Um, Beyond that, I also identified that I wasn't getting enough social interaction with other people. So I made it my goal to make more friends and find a serious relationship in the future. So I guess that's kind of important to remember for the rest of my story, that I had made it my goal to make more friends and to find a serious relationship in my next semester. So I entered spring semester of Berkeley with high hopes of improving everything that had gone wrong my first semester. And it didn't turn out great, but I want to talk about why. So I got back to Berkeley for my spring semester, and the first week seemed to be going like really well for me. So I had my goals in mind, right? And so I decided to rush a frat. I had a friend in the frat, and he said that I would be a good fit and that I should definitely go for it. So that was my way of trying to make more friends. And then I started going on dates with this one person. So that was my way of trying to find a relationship. And I started taking my Japanese class and my CS class, and I really fell in love with them. So everything seemed to be going really great for me. And I thought I was finally on track to, fix all the problems I had with my first semester. And, life doesn't always go the way you want it. And February came around, and February was one of the hardest months of my life. So I got rejected from the frat. So that wasn't great. I was more surprised than I was disappointed because I thought that I'd fit in. I thought I did pretty well. Like, I thought I connected well with people. Like, I still know people in the frat, and I would consider myself friends with them. So I was surprised that I didn't get a bid, but it's okay. The person I'd been going on dates with, they kind of ended things pretty abruptly, and I don't know why. Still don't know why. It doesn't really matter anymore. But those two things combined at the same time, I was like, well, I just failed both of the goals that I had set for myself for the semester within like 3 weeks of setting them. So that didn't feel good. I felt like I just got kicked in the stomach by God. He just didn't want me to do those goals, right? And then, worst of all, my grandpa, who I was very close to, I visit him every day during winter break, to give you a degree of how close we were. He passed away in the middle of February, and I didn't get to visit him before he passed. So I flew home for his funeral, and then I flew back to take my midterms the next week. And that was one of the hardest periods in my life, was definitely this past February. It was very hard to balance my feeling of failure, failing my goals, with also losing my grandfather, and then also having to deal with just normal college stuff. It just didn't feel great. So it took me a while to recover, probably until the end of March. I was feeling a bit better. And then after March, it was just I chose to focus on myself, I guess. I just did everything I could to try and get better. And that involved cutting off a friend who kind of and was in a toxic relationship with me, and I decided that if I wanted to get better, I couldn't be friends with this person anymore. Um, Beyond that, I focused really hard on my schoolwork. Um, I ended up getting like all A's or A minuses this past semester because I just threw myself at my work so much because I just didn't know what else to do, really. I didn't really know how else to fill my life, what else I should do. Um, well, that's not true because I wanted to talk about one other thing. I started tutoring more, and I work as a part-time tutor, and it's really a fulfilling job. It makes me feel really happy to know that I can give back to the city of Berkeley in some way because I come there, I increase the rent with my gentrification just by existing. I use their resources, etc., etc. So it's nice to know that I can do something to give back. And tutoring makes me feel really happy, so I did a lot of tutoring, and that helped me recover also. And then, yeah, I finished second semester bruised but not beaten, I would guess. I would say is a good way to put it. It was hard. It was harder than even my fall semester, I think. But I got through it, and I learned a lot about myself, I think. So I think that this video has been really serious and kind of depressing so far. It's focused on a lot of the bad stuff. So, I mean, everything wasn't bad. There was some small things that kept me going that made me happy throughout the semester. For example, the Japanese class. I learned to speak Japanese pretty well. So right now I speak English, of course. I speak Spanish pretty fluently. French is like, it's pretty intermediate. And then Japanese, I would say, is a bit higher than French, but definitely not the level of Spanish. It's just a really hard language. But I've learned so much, and it made me really happy. I really enjoy learning languages, so it was such a great experience for me. Beyond that, I set up my current housemate with her boyfriend, and that felt, I don't know, it was just something that made me really happy that I could help her out like that. And her current boyfriend is one of my friends too, so that was cool. And beyond that, I mean, I really enjoyed my EE and CS classes. And I mean, well, EE was okay, I guess. CS was really fun. And it just felt really good finding something that you actually really enjoy to do in university. And I definitely plan on pursuing it in the future. And it's just nice knowing that you have something that you're passionate about. So the final thing I want to talk about is what I just did this past summer. So I did actually decide to double in bioengineering, my current major, and EECS, which is electrical engineering and computer science. So I decided to take 2 summer classes so I could declare at the end of the summer. And I took CS 70 and CS 160. So CS 70 is this math course, and CS 160 is a design course. So they weren't really the main components of CS. They're kind of like fringe-ish things. So like the theoretical math that goes into CS, as well as the designing for consumers. And I found them both pretty interesting. They were pretty fun. They were really fast because it was during the summer. So I was waking up to go to class. Class started at 10:30, and then my last class would finish at 5. So I was spending the entire day doing these classes, and then outside the projects and homework, and it was very intense. But I really enjoyed it because it was so much work. I actually enjoyed having all that work. I think I'm kind of like a workaholic. If I'm not busy, then I'm like going insane. Um, and yeah, I just took my finals. I don't know what I got yet, but I'm gonna be fine, I think. And the summer is just nice in Berkeley because there's not many people around. It's just you, your thoughts, whatever you're doing in your work. The one complaint I had is I didn't get to go to the gym that much, so I feel like I gained weight, but I know I didn't because I checked the scale. But I feel like I got more unhealthy because I just didn't have time. I was so busy with my classes and stuff. But yeah, the summer really helped me get over my bad mental state of last year, and I'm ready to go into my next semester. Clean slate. I'm not going to put any high goals or expectations on myself like I did last time because that's just setting myself up for disappointment or, you know, failure even. I'm just going to go in and try my best. Yeah, I'm just going to try my best. So that was a summary of what I've been doing for the past year. And let me know if you have any questions about anything. Just leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. Thanks, and I'll hope to see you guys next year.